Welcome everybody. Would you like to power down your, or put your phone on silence? And there is an app from the eHealth week, and at the end of the session, it would be appreciated if you do some feedback that's from the organization. Thank you.
I think you have got a tonsillitis, and I would like to treat that with antibiotics. I will give you a prescription. You take 3 tablets once a day, and you finish the course even if you don't have any complaints anymore. Okay? You have any more questions?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Well, that was a totally normal visit to the doctor. The doctor sees what kind of disease you have, gives you a cure, and tells you what the treatment is. So, nothing special. Traditional, and it's very good. I should know because I am a doctor. And I'll introduce myself. I'm Marcus Oei. I'm ENT surgeon at the Flevenziekenhuis Almere. I'm also the chairman of the Trusted Sources Foundation and founder of Inforium, which is an eHealth company. When you're going to be a doctor, this is what you learn. Find the disease, get the cure, and treat the patient. That's what we have to do. And that works good a lot of times. But I think, let me first. No, I'm really convinced that we can do better. I think that patients can play a very big role in their own health and also in how to make choices in treatment. eHealth can be a very good way to transfer knowledge from the doctor to the patient, and that's why eHealth can make a big difference in this. So what we're going to do today is to show you how to help people to make better choices. Because, for example, in display, you got the antibiotic for sore throat. Well, medical evidence shows there is no difference whatsoever in using antibiotics for a sore throat. But she didn't offer any other options. And the patient didn't ask for other options. And that's not so strange. My son was operated a few years ago, and I went with him to the doctor. He was a good doctor, and he said to operate, and my son was operated a few weeks later, and he's doing fine. But up until this moment, I still don't know what happened exactly, because I forgot 50, 60, 70% what was told. And I didn't got any options, so I didn't know if there's an option. And I also did not ask for it. So whether you're a doctor or not, doesn't matter. As a patient, we are all the same. But I'm a doctor, and I know there are different options. So why don't you give them to them? Because when we do, there will be a lot of change in how we're going to communicate with people. And the whole process of decision making is going to change. So how are you going to get this changed? So it has to be a change of attitude. And this change of attitude and the way of how we're going to make different decisions, that's what we call shared decision making. And that's what we're going to show you. In part 1, we're going to show what is shared decision making and why do we do it? Why is it worthwhile? The second part is, well, what do we need to do any kind of shared decision making? And in the third part, that's for me was the most interesting part, how do we do that in clinical practice? Because if we don't do anything, we can talk about it a lot, but nothing happens. We're going to start with a little movie.
Voor mij is het belangrijk dat ik door middel van deze applicatie de juiste informatie over mijn aandoening krijg, die door artsen is opgesteld, die applicatie, zodat ik ook de juiste informatie krijg en zodat ik met mijn behandelend arts tot een goed behandelplan kan komen.
Ik vind het zelf heel belangrijk dat je de keuze mag mee bepalen. Dat je er zelf al je van tevoren in kan leven en een goed gevoel bij kan hebben. Ja, dat weegt toch wel heel erg. Als je bij de arts terugkomt, dan kun je het zo perfect terugkoppelen, omdat je zelf aantekeningen hebt kunnen maken in die app. En dan kun je die vragen terugkoppelen aan de arts. Dus je bent voldoende geïnformeerd om er dieper op in te gaan met de arts. Waar het ook heel handig voor is dat je krijgt zoveel informatie bij de arts. En dan kom je thuis en er worden natuurlijk vragen gesteld. En dan kun je aan de hand van de keuzehulp kun je het gewoon weer even terugkoppelen.
Sommige diagnoses zijn heel erg duidelijk. Dan is het zo dat als iemand zijn been gebroken heeft en het bot steekt naar buiten, dan is het duidelijk, er moet iets gebeuren. Het kan ook zo zijn dat de behandeling niet zo duidelijk is. Bijvoorbeeld als iemand een versleten heup heeft, maar nog net niet misschien toe is aan een nieuwe heup, dan kan je kiezen of voor fysiotherapie of voor die nieuwe heup. En dan kan een keuzehulp een patiënt goed helpen om voor hem de juiste keuze te maken.
So, this is an example of an eHealth shared decision-making app. This is a long session, so when there's a video, just feel free to stretch to stay awake. Please don't. There are also some more plays, so don't stretch there. That's not so nice. But we're going to start with. Let me introduce you for the first speakers. That's Sander Verdulmen. She is a professor in health communication, and Glenn Elwin. He is one of the leading people in the shared decision-making movement. Thank you.
I work at the Netherlands Institute for Health Services Research, the NIVEL, at the right. I also work at the Radboud University Medical Center in Nijmegen. And I work at the University College in Southeast Norway, in Norway that is. Imagine you're diagnosed with a depression which causes you a lot of pain and anger, and well, you really want to get rid of it. It's not so hard to imagine that you're diagnosed with a depression, because once in your life, one in every 5 people in the Netherlands will be diagnosed with a depression. And in treating depression, there are generally 2 options which you can choose. Either you can start with medication, or you can increase your physical activity and start walking, for instance, every day, an hour or more. These are somewhat similar effects with these two treatments. So we talk about clinical equipoise. So there's no treatment it's more beneficial or less beneficial than the other. So who's the one who's going to choose between these 2 options? Do you let the doctor choose? Do you let the doctors prescribe you medication? Or do you have your own ideas and think what I would like to, how do I like to be treated in depression? And the same is for COPD. When you attended the plenary just an hour ago, Daan Domen presented Mr. Jullens, who also suffers from COPD. And in COPD there are also quite similar treatment options. For instance, you can quit smoking, and then you can say, oh no, I don't want to quit smoking because I will get fat or I will get much more stressed. Or you can start medication with a lot of side effects. So there are a lot of things which you can think of when choosing between 2 different treatments. And when the patient doesn't collaborate in the effort of the doctor to think about and make a choice between these 2 different treatments, then you don't have any voice in your treatments. So when it comes to shared decision making, you can participate in this process. And that's what is so important about it. But how can you do that?
Hello, my name is Glenn Elwin. Until a few years ago I was a family doctor in the UK, and now I'm working at Dartmouth College, where I study shared decision making. So let me start there. what is shared decision making? I often turn to this cartoon to help me keep it simple. What's going on here? I often ask people to say, what's this man saying? And many people say, well, he's making a recommendation to the patient, take this medicine, or I recommend this treatment. But actually, that's not really what's going on. What's going on is that the patient is saying, I prefer this one. What's happened is that the patient has been given simple information to read, they've been supported to understand it, and they've been enabled to say, actually, now that I've understood what the alternatives are, I prefer this option. This is actually what shared decision making is all about. It's about really supporting that patient understand what's facing them in the future, and then helping them arrive at a very comfortable decision for them and their family members. But why bother? This seems like a lot more work than usual. So why is this important to do? Well, simple, it's ethical. It's really good practice. It's the best thing that we could possibly do for our patients. But many people seem to want even more reasons than that. So let's think about what's possible to say. Well, actually doing this process gives better results for patients. They adhere to their medicines, they understand more about what they need to take, and they have less regrets. They're better results for patients, in short. It's also less harmful for patients. People choose often more conservative options, they take less risks. So in the long run, things are safer for people. It's also true to say, in general at least, for many conditions, this is less expensive because if people are choosing less complicated or less aggressive treatments, it usually means that these are less expensive. But that's not such a great reason why to do shared decision making, but it's an important factor. It also means that patients are much more satisfied. People really value being informed and being involved in decisions. So that's really important, especially when healthcare systems are beginning to measure that. Now this happens when shared decision making is done skillfully. So what do I mean by skillfully? Well, let me try and keep it as simple as we can. Whenever you're facing a decision, I think most of us have some kind of initial idea. Let's call that an initial preference. We know that something has to be done, even if it's actually we stay as we are and we prefer to do watchful waiting or nothing at all. But we have an idea. So that's where we start. And then as soon as somebody says to us, well actually there are alternatives, we're beginning to think, well, we need to think about this, we need to deliberate. And this word deliberation describes that. Now we can't deliberate about everything. We'd never get dressed in the morning if we have to think about everything that we do. But in medicine, actually it's quite important to think carefully about treatments, things that we're facing that may have to stay with us for the rest of our life, a medication or maybe an operation. So it's important in medicine to deliberate. Now this journey of deliberation takes us, if you like, from an initial preference along to an informed preference. And the psychologists call this preference construction. And it's not a straightforward issue because it means really getting to understand things better. But this is the journey that shared decision making supports. So, the first step in shared decision making is what I refer to as team talk. Most people feel, well, this is more complicated, it's maybe a decision responsibility that I'm not happy with. So the first thing to do is to say, don't worry, we're actually going to form a team here. We call this team talk. I'm going to make a partnership with you and your family to think through this carefully. So you're not going to be abandoned. This is called team talk. And then, as soon as we mention that there are treatment options A and B, we need information about the options. We call this option talk. And this involves giving information in a way that patients can understand, and that's not easy sometimes. And it also means explaining the risk and of the future risk of something good happening and something bad happening. And we call this option talk. And the last step of all is decision talk. And here's where people say, well, okay, now that I've understood, you maybe have more questions, you want to discuss things with your relatives and family members and so on. And you may be beginning to arrive at, well, this is what I think is important for me, and you arrive at a decision. And often this can take more than one discussion, and that's perfectly acceptable. So here's then the 3-talk model. Team talk, option talk, decision talk, and the process of deliberation. Now, it looks neat and tidy, but conversations in the real world are just not like this. They're much more complicated, they're more dynamic, and that's okay, it's fine. This model is just to help people, when they're learning this shared decision making, just to get a grip on what follows what process.
Well, this really sounds like a good and valuable and practical model, the 3-talk model. But as Glyn told us, clinical practice is much more complicated, and there are so many aspects which we have to take into account to make this work. So there are some prerequisites which I want to mention in order to have this 3-talk model work. When you look at a patient, there is a need for patient to understand what's going on, to understand his condition, to understand the consequences, the diagnosis, the prognosis, where the choices are made for. And he has to participate in this, actually in this decision-making process, but also in the conversation itself. He has to provide information which is relevant for a doctor to know what's going on in daily life or in the medical situation. And he has to accept his role in decision-making. But the doctor himself, him or herself, has to have an attitude of being inviting to the patient. He has to include the patient in the conversation and not think for the patient and not think that the patient is not willing or incapable of participating in the decision making. And you have, as a doctor, you have to tailor your information to what is already known by the patient, how the profile of the patient in general is, the health literacy level, perhaps his living circumstances, the whole context in which a treatment takes place should be considered in the conversation with the patient. And then you also have the patient experience, which you should take into account. What is important for the patient to live with this condition, what he wants to do in his life, what his values and preferences are. Then in interaction, when the doctor and the patient come together, you have to have ample time to talk about all these different issues. Like Glyn presented, the 3-talk model can also mean that you have to have 3 visits instead of 1, because there's so many things you have to consider, especially when it concerns a serious disease. So you have to talk about the values and the preferences and emotions of the patients and do this in a respectful way. And this could mean that you have to present yourself in a different way. Like this doctor, he's talking in a very traditional way with his patients about the treatment options or options about where do you want to be cured or taken care of. And maybe you have to level a bit more with your patient and just take off your white coat and sit next to the patient in order to be able to talk on the same level and really do a shared healthcare and shared decision making. But of course there are also other ways to support the process of decision making, and Glyn will tell us more about that.
Now, we often use tools called option grids to help this along. So let me illustrate what I mean by an option grid. Here's an example of one. It helps us get to this 3-talk model. You'll see here a table with frequently asked questions down one column, and on the other columns, mastectomy and lumpectomy with radiotherapy. And the way we use this table is to use one frequently asked question at a time and read across. So here's the first question, what is removed? And then you compare across and so on. So this kind of tool helps create those kind of conversations where you deliberate carefully and compare different treatment options. So we often say to doctors there are 3 steps in using an option grid. Please explain it, the table layout, how to use it. Then give it to the patient, maybe with a pen so that they can write on it and make notes or ask questions. And then use it to create a better discussion. That's the classical way of using these short tools, encounter tools, in clinical conversations. So, using the grid like this, we hope to help people get to an informed preference using a process called shared decision making.
Well, but what we know about the effectiveness of these decision tools? What is already being researched on this topic? Well, we know that decision support tools enhance patient involvement, and they force not only physicians to attend to patient values, but they also force the patients to think about what is important for him. And that's very, very important, because if you have a chance to talk with your partner about a treatment and what to do, then you can prepare this conversation with the doctor and see how well you can find the way through these different treatment options. And we also know from literature that decision support tools increase patient knowledge and risk perception, so you know as a patient what's going on, what's at stake. And they also decrease decisional conflict and decisional regret. So you don't regret a choice afterwards if you are well informed before making the decision. So as a result, there's better quality of life, better quality of care, and better medication adherence. These are effects which are truly evidence for in literature. But when you look at daily medical practice, you see that many patients do not have an idea that they have a choice. They are not given the choice, like demonstrated in the first lineup with the simulation situation. And there's also the fact that, like the doctor here in his white coat, he didn't put it off yet, but the medical arguments weigh much more in decision making than patient preferences. And we also know that physicians do not inquire about patient values and preferences in 1 out of 5 visits. So the physician doesn't know what's going on in the patient. And 30% of patients, they want a physician to make the decision, especially when they're seriously ill. But even then, that's the decision they made. I don't want to take part of this decision. It's a decision which a patient has made, knowing what's at stake. But even then a doctor should consider values and preferences of a patient in order to make a decision which is really in line what the patient would have wanted. How important are we? How do we think about decision making? Is it important for us to consider the way the doctor gives space to our values and preferences?
Do you think that you've experienced this process called shared decision making? And how would you know? Well, we've thought about this, and just thinking about it from your point of view, you would have experienced it if somebody would have involved you, given you information, shown an interest in your views, and respected your views. So what questions might be relevant? Well, here's 3 questions that we thought might be very important for patients to answer. How much effort was made to help you understand your health issues and possibility of alternatives? How much effort was made to listen to the things that matter most to you about your health issues? Second question. Third question. How much effort was made to include what matters most to you in choosing what to do next? These 3 questions then form the measure we've called collaborate. And here's how it's measured. If no effort at all was made, you scored 0. If every effort was made, you felt that somebody's really making a good effort to do this, you score 9. Now I want you to think about your most recent health encounter. Would you score it giving 3 9s? Or 3 zeros? Or somewhere in between? And that's the kind of measure we're asking patients to complete. So that's it then, a 3-talk model, option grids. My hope is that if you're ever a patient, you end up like the man in the spectacles, well informed, supported, unable to say, I prefer this one.
Well, the work Clint Elwin did with his option grids stimulated a lot of others to develop more sophisticated online decision support tools. And I will end with demonstrating one who was recently launched and is now implemented in different hospitals in the Netherlands, which indicates that it's so important to make a decision and to work on making decisions together with your physician.
Je weet dat er een diagnose komt en je hebt nog steeds hoop. En die hoop is er totdat de arts zegt, dit is je uitslag.
Voor patiënten met dikke darmkanker zijn er meerdere behandelmogelijkheden, verschillende middelen, verschillende schema's. En de patiënt heeft daar absoluut een keuze in. Elke behandeling, elke combinatie heeft zijn eigen bijwerkingen, eigen voor- en nadelen. En deze keuzehulp helpt ons om samen met de patiënt een juiste beslissing te nemen over welke behandeling het meest passend is.
De keuzehulp is heel confronterend, omdat er vragen in staan die je liever niet zou willen beantwoorden. Maar het zijn wel vragen waar je over moet nadenken. En daar moet je zelf over nadenken en niet door anderen laten beïnvloeden, want het gaat om jou.
De patiënt logt thuis zelf in, vult in wat voor hem of haar belangrijk is. Aan de hand van het papier leg ik de mogelijkheden uit.
De eerste vraag gaat over jou in de keuzehulp. Van wat vind jij belangrijk en waar sta je nu en waar ben je mee bezig? Ik vind kwaliteit van leven belangrijk. Ik vind de duur belangrijk. Hele confronterende vragen, maar wel goed om daar van tevoren over na te denken.
Uiteindelijk rolt er dan uit die keuzehulp een voorkeur van de patiënt, ingegeven door zijn eigen voorkeuren.
Het is heel overzichtelijk, het is een stappenplan en het bereidt je goed voor op het gesprek met de specialist of met je oncoloog.
Wat ik zie in de praktijk is dat elke patiënt andere afwegingen maakt wat kwaliteit van leven betekent. Voor de een betekent het een zware behandeling met maximaal effect om de kanker te bestrijden. Voor de ander betekent kwaliteit van leven een hele lichte behandeling of zelfs geen behandeling, omdat de voor- en nadelen dan niet tegen elkaar opwegen.
Er is heel veel onzekerheid, heel veel verwarring, heel veel emoties, waardoor je heel veel dingen niet onthoudt en heel veel dingen niet als een soort van waas aan je voorbij gaan. En de keuzehulp kun je ieder moment van de dag, op welk tijdstip dan ook, kun je openen, kun je je voorbereiden, informatie vinden en ook meenemen naar je specialist.
Thank you so far.
Thank you, Sandra. It's a very nice presentation. It's also nice to see that distance doesn't matter anymore. You can just do it with digital techniques. So I hope the show now that you have a choice and that shared decision making is as ethical as well as sensible. But let me ask you a question. Who of you wants to have something to say about your own treatment? Raise your hand if you want to. Okay. So, who have you, I suppose everybody has been to the doctor in the last few years. How many of you have gotten, how many of you had the doctor who gave you different treatment options? Not a lot. And of the people who did not get any treatment options, how many of you asked, is there an alternative option? So that's one of the first, what they're going to do next time you're going to go to the doctor. That's a very simple question to ask. Are there any alternative options? So this ends part one. And we're going to go back to the doctor's visit, the doctor's office.
Yes, am I here? Yeah. So your child has several episodes of otitis media, of earache, and she doesn't hear well. And so there are several options to treat that. We could do the operation and put some grommets in the eardrum, which helps the hearing, and it helps immediately. But there's also a chance of less infections in the future. But you can also choose to wait and see what happens. Usually, after a couple of weeks to months, the hearing gets better spontaneously, and also the chances of getting infections are getting less in the future. So the grommets we can put in the ears, they have a small chance of permanent perforation in the eardrum. But this doesn't happen very often. So what shall we do? I think the operation is preferable.
I'm not sure, actually. Can I think about it?
Yes, of course, you can take all the time you want. Here is a flyer about the surgery. If you want to have the surgery, you can phone the secretary and we'll arrange the surgery. Is it okay? You have any more questions?
No, that's okay. Thank you for your information.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Marlene and Suzanne. Well, shared decision making, isn't it? Options, they were told. So, what's the problem? Is this good shared decision making? No, it's not. Why? Because it goes very fast, and we know with only verbal information, a very minority of the knowledge sticks with the patient. So we have to do some other things. And getting the knowledge from the doctor to the patient, that's something what eHealth will be the great catalyst in the future. But we need some things if we want to do that. So let me introduce to you Ton Drenten. He's and Pauline de Heer. Yeah. Ton Drenten is from the Association of General Practitioners, and he's also one of the board members of the Dutch platform of shared decision making. And Pauline de Heer is one of the what is it in English? The Quality Institute.
Well, it's the National Healthcare Institute.
National Healthcare Institute. Too difficult. And we will do the second part. Tom.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Marcus. Indeed, my name is Ton Drenten. I'm a sociologist working at the Dutch College of GPs as team leader, prevention and patient education. I'm going to tell you about the place of decision aids as part of an of a website with evidence-based patient information, which is based on evidence-based guidelines. In Dutch, it's called thuisarts.nl. In English, it means GP at home or home doctor. The Dutch College of GPs is an old organization, 60 years old, founded in 1956. Almost all Dutch GPs are member of the Dutch College. And the mission of the college is to support and improve evidence-based general practice. The main activity is making guidelines and implementing guidelines for GPs. And one of the activities to support the implementation of GPs is to support GPs in patient education. We started over 20 years ago with simple patient information leaflets for the waiting room of GPs. And at this moment, thuisarts.nl is the main activity on patient education. This is the Google Translate version of thuisarts.nl. Unfortunately, it's only in Dutch available, but this is a Google translation, so we don't. There are some formulations which are not correct, but it's to give an impression of the website. There are the website has 3 search entries. The first. Oh, sorry. I'm going too quick.
Red button. Bovenaan. Ja.
Bovenop? Nou. Is het nou verkeerd? Nou. I don't. You see a search bar, then the alphabet where you can click, and on left you can search by clicking at the body, so you can go to the body part where you have complaints. Oh, ja, ik heb de pointer. Ja. Ja, oké. Sorry. Here you see a some pages where you can choose directly. This is an overview of decision aids. I can go into that a bit later. The website is very successful. We see that about 3/4 of Dutch GPs use the website every day in their consultation. So they use it in their talk with the patient. The number of visitors is varies between 60,000 in the weekend on Saturday and Sunday, and 90,000 at Monday. That's the most busy day also in general practice. This is also the Google Translate version with the overview of decision aids. We call it keuzenhulpen in the Netherlands. These decision aids were originally developed for the website Choosing Better, about which Pauline will tell later, but they were moved to thuisarts.nl. An example of the decision aid shows that the decision aid is integrated part of the regular patient information. For example, about sore throat, people can choose which situation suits best for them. I have a sore throat, or my child has a sore throat. But also you can choose to look at the decision aid, where you can see the options, for example, operation or watchful waiting. This is an example of an option grid, like Glenn Elwin showed you. This is a patient version of the table that is also part of the guideline for GPs. The Nivel Institute, where Sandra works, did some research about the effect of visiting the website thuisarts.nl. And they asked people from the consumers panel who were planning to visit the GP if they changed their plans after looking at thuisarts.nl. And we see in the blue bar that 12% of the people who planned to visit the GP choose not to visit the GP after they read the information on thuisarts.nl. And the other way around, 10% of the people who did not plan to visit the GP went to the GP after reading the information on thuisarts. So we see an effect on the small effect on the medical consumption. We have other results which are not yet public, but they will be in an article in the British Medical Journal within a few months. Then also we have future plans. We are always developing the website. One important change will be that we also will add the information on thuisarts.nl with information from medical specialists. There's a project with the Federation of Medical Specialists and the Patient Federation. Also, we will develop more decision aids and more option grids into thuisarts.nl, and we want to make more videos, more multimedia, more images to make it better understandable for people who cannot read very well. And also there are plans to extend the website to an eHealth platform, which makes it possible to make appointments with your GP, to link to patients' records, or to do an online consultation. So this is a brief overview of the possibilities of thuisarts.nl. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Well, thank you for this this lovely speech on thuisarts. I am Pauline de Heer. I work for the Dutch government, the National Healthcare Institute, and I would like to explain what we as the government do to improve the information to patients. And, well, first something about the National Healthcare Institute. We're, well, a small organization, but we have a couple of important tasks. We work on the coverage of the Healthcare Insurance Act and also the Long-Term Care Act. We do risk adjustment, which is very complicated. And we finally review healthcare professions and also look at future developments. And in bold, we facilitate good healthcare. And we try to work on quality improvement. So what do? We mainly try to help parties to improve healthcare. And also we try to help patients and, well, parties to help patients to find good quality care. So that means information on what is good care, but also information on which healthcare providers offer good quality, something that takes a lot of development. So we make this quality transparent, and we publish the information. We do this in a public database with open data, so anyone can access it and use it. And we make kiesbeter.nl, which is choosebetter.nl for patients. This website is actually, well, as lightweight as possible. We try to provide access to all information or all good information on what good healthcare is in the Netherlands. And that means we provide access. So as government, we don't produce all this information ourselves, but there are a lot of great organizations that make texts for patients, that make option grids, that make videos, all kinds of things, and we collect that and link to it. So we try to answer 3 questions. What is good healthcare for my disease? Where can I find good healthcare? So with information of healthcare providers. And where can I find other trustworthy information of related topics? Currently, we have, of 175 diseases, we have, well, information and links collected. And we also have information on over 2,000 healthcare organizations, such as hospitals, long-term care institutions, etc. And we link to more than 2,000 guidelines, websites, option grids, and well, there are more to come there. This is what Choose Better looks like if you use Google Translate. So if you're Dutch, I think it's better to just visit the website. And we have also different entrances. So we have all kinds of topics to look into, diseases, and we have an entrance here to look for healthcare providers. But of course, it's not all focused on making this website. Our main work is to support other organizations, patient organizations, but also professional organizations to improve and share their patient information. And of course, we have the public database with open data, which can be accessed as well. And finally, all the Kiesbeter pages we make, they are also shared with Betrouwbare Bron and Inforium, which will be discussed by Marcus later on. Okay. So that concludes my talk.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, we have all this good information made by all kinds of parties. There's supposed to be 2,000, but it didn't fit on the slide, of course. And then we had everything put in one big database with Choose Better. So the doctor should have everything at his fingertips to give it to the patient. But we have one very big problem. How does the patient get the information? Because it's very difficult, it's digital. So we try all kinds of things. We say, well, go to this and that website, and we think they go there, but of course they go to Dr. Google. Or we give them a little note from go to this and this and this, and they lose it immediately. So we have to focus on this part, the communication between the doctor and the patient. We have tried with personal health records, with portals, but we know the acceptance is very low. If you have 10%, you're very good. And apps are now very hot, but I doubt if they're going to be a lot bigger. So we have to think simple. What is something almost all people use, even if they like Twitter or Facebook? Everybody has an email address. So, what we have done is to create a bridge between the doctor and the patient using the most common pathway, email, their own email box, but with respect for privacy. So, how does it work? This is the doctor web interface. Well, what happens, the doctor has his hyperlink, every GP information is there, all the decision aids are there, you click something, the email is coming from the EHR, you send it, it's at the patient. And what the patient finds, he opens his mailbox, and that's his Gmail, or it can also be Outlook or Apple. And he clicks the link in it, and he's exactly at the place where you want him to be. This is breast cancer, including the option grid. So, yeah, it went very fast, so I'll do it again. So, and this way you can bring any digital information to the patient, whether it is a PDF or whether it is the application you've made. It can be an app, we can point them immediately to the Play Store at a good page. Everything which is digital, you can give them. Also, for example, instructions how to bend your knee after your knee operation. It's very simple to use for the doctor and for the patient. And we solve the privacy issues by storing no data whatsoever, and every IT security experts have agreed, and they think, well, how is it possible? And they look at it, okay, that's acceptable. Even the Bureau of Privacy in Holland. But the most important is, acceptance is extremely high. More than 80% of the people accept this. And in our clinic, of course, high, it's at 92%. But even over 60 years, it's over 60%. And the most important is the patients love it. I sit on the desk, I'll send it, and then, it's already here in my pocket, because it's so quick. So now we have something to, the information which is made, we have all the information stored together, and we can put it, bring it to the patient without any problem. So we have all the tools we need to get it to the patient. And this is a very simple one. You can also have very more advanced tools. We'll show you about that. But first I want to thank you for showing how much work and effort you have put in all your content and your database. Thank you.
You input the diagnosis in the electronic health record system. Automatically, an email is sent to the patient with a digital decision aid. Research tells us patients forget 80% of the information told by their healthcare providers. The DDA better informs your patient about the diagnosis and treatments available. At the same time, it allows them to consider the options from a personal perspective. For example, I'm a single mom, so it's important for me to get out of the hospital as soon as possible, and I'm afraid of needles, but I don't mind taking large pills. The patient responses are then sent back to the EHR system. This gives you real-time insight into the patient's treatment preferences. Now, your patient is better informed, and so are you. Patient satisfaction and interaction increases, improving the quality of healthcare. Your workflow is more efficient, saving time and cost. Best of all of this information is centralized in your EHR system.
But now we're going to put everything in practice. In the Flevenziekenhuis Almere, we have changed our way of working a long time ago, a few years ago. And when we introduced shared decision making, we have to change the whole process of treating a patient and let them make their own choices. So I'm going to show you a little video about it.
In the ENT department of the Flevo Hospital in Almere, we started using shared decision making for frequently occurring common diseases. In this case, we are using it for glue ears, where we can choose from multiple treatment modalities. Usually, during the first consultation, the doctor diagnoses the disease and explains it, and at the same time the decision about the treatment is taken. We believe this is not the best way to let the patient participate in this decision. They don't have time to think about what factors in the treatment are especially important for them. We changed our consultation process. After the first visit, we send patients a secure mail with information about the disease and different treatments. This mail contains written information, but also visual information like a video clip. At home, patients review this information, think about it, and families can discuss the information. During the next visit, we check if the information was clear and discuss what factors are important for the patient. Based on this information, the doctor and the patient reach together a decision about the treatment. The patients feel better informed and are better equipped to make a sensible decision. We observe that our patients are better informed and more often choose a wait-and-see policy instead of an operation.
Okay, sorry. Dr. Flaming has to go, so that's why I have to play two roles at the moment. So sometimes I will look at you, and I'm not wearing a white coat, but for this moment I'm a doctor also. Can you change the screen? Yeah. So we're back at the doctor's office now. So we found that your child has a lot of infection in his ear, and he doesn't hear very good for the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to have to make some decision, because there are different treatment choices. And what we're going to do, don't have to do a decision today, but first I'm going to explain to you what's the problem and what the different options are. And then you get all the information to discuss at home. You have plenty of time for that, and then we'll meet again.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, good. So, this is what Glenn Elman taught. This is a team talk. One thing is very important in this, is that you can only make a good decision. Because there are different decisions, but they're all good. Mm-hmm. And it's a matter of preferences, which one you choose. So, but you cannot make a mistake in this.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's look into your. So what's happening? Oops. So he has a lot of ear infection, and why is that? That's because. Oops. That's because when you look here. This is the middle ear, yeah. And this is the eardrum, and this is the eustachian tube. And usually air comes from the nose to the ear. Mm-hmm. But he has a running nose all the time, so this doesn't work. So what happens is that the fluid stays in his ear, and then it gets infected, and then it swells, and that's extremely painful because the eardrum is very sensitive to pain. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why he has so much pain. And now you can also understand why he has the episodes, but also how grommets work. Because what they do, they give an alternative route from outside to inside for the air. Okay. And if there's an infection, all the fluid goes out of it without building up any pressure. So when he has a running ear, it's not as bad as the infection he has at the moment, because that's awful, isn't it?
It's awful.
Yeah, I know.
Not sleeping. And,
yeah. Nobody's sleeping at home.
Nobody's sleeping in the house.
Yeah. So when you put grommets in the ear, you have the hearing is better immediately, but you also have less pain in it. And usually they disappear out of the ear spontaneously in 4 and 12 months. But 2%, so 1 in 50 or 2 in 100, they go out of the ear and it doesn't heal. So then we have to do another operation, and that's a bigger operation than putting grommets in. So that's a disadvantage. And of course, because you have now the open exit, he can have, next time you will have an infection, you will have a running ear.
Okay.
So, but that's not bad, because that's something we like to accomplish. Yes? Of course, when he wants to do this, he has to go under narcosis, but that's a safe procedure. That's not too bad. What was most important to you?
Well, I'm afraid that with this hair loss, that his development will be hampered.
Yeah.
We're very concerned about that.
That's perfectly understandable. Of course, you think, well, you cannot hear, so it doesn't develop very good. That's a good question. We have done, there are extensive studies of thousands of children, and we have found that there's no difference whatsoever on the long term for speech development or general development. So you don't have to be worried about that.
Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah. There's also one other thing. The other option, of course, is wait and see. If we wait for usually within 6 to 9 months, the hearing will get better as well. But in that time, he might have some more infections.
Okay.
And one other thing, well, it's June, of course, at this moment, and the summer is coming. So in the summer, what do you notice? Of course, the children are doing better with their nose, so the chance of infection will be less in the next few months. So there's also an option to wait until fall and see what's going on.
Okay.
Yes?
Yeah.
So I'll send this to your as your email address. You also get the information and the decision aid from thuisarts.nl, which is from the general petition. And you also have there all the information about grommets. And I also have the information about the ENT Association, and there's a video to look at as well.
Okay.
Yes?
Yes, perfect.
So I'll see you back again in 2 weeks, and then think about it, write down your questions, and we'll talk about the decision later.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah.
So now, this was the option talk. She goes home, she can talk to it, she can with the partner, and can write down what is the preference. And now we're going back to 2 weeks later, and we are back in office.
Yes.
So.
Well, we received all your information. I read it, my husband read it, and it's all very clear. And we decided to wait and see what happens.
Okay.
As our big concern was that the development it would be influenced, and you reassured us that this is not the case. Yeah. So that's what we like to do. Okay,
that's a good decision. So we'll just wait. We can meet again after summer, or if you want to have any questions, feel free to contact us, of course.
Okay.
I said this is a good decision because you waited for the summer. If you had said I want to have grommets, I also would have said it's a good decision because they are a good decision. You cannot make a bad decision. So I'm not the one who tells her what to do, and I'm not going to lead her what to do because she has her own choice. So of course, end of the play acting, of course, because we know each other, of course. Because you went through this whole. We went through this in real life, of course, with your son Elliot.
Yeah,
so,
your patient.
Yeah. Yes. So what did you choose?
We decided together actually that it was best for him to remove his throat and nose tonsils, and to place grommets in his ears. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how's he doing now?
He's doing perfect.
Okay,
no problem.
Great.
We're all sleeping again, so
okay.
Yeah.
Glenn told us something about those questions. I cannot remember them, sorry. Yeah. So I have to write them down. So I'm going to ask you the questions that Glenn asked you, just to see if we are doing okay. So how much effort was made to understand your health issues?
I think from the very start, you gave us information. It was all very clear, and right after we phoned your assistant to make an appointment, she already sent us information through Inforium, and so this was all very clear. Yeah.
And how much effort was made to listen to the things that matter most to you?
Well, our biggest concern was that Elliot would not, we didn't want him to go through surgery unnecessary, because it's the recovery from mostly throat tonsils is very painful, and he's only 2 years old. So we were like, if it's necessary, then of course we'll help him, but we were doubting, and after that you gave us all the information, and our biggest concern was taken away, and so that, and also we all the information was given, and I could use it, look at it home, and even share it with other people who had different experience also. So.
Okay. So question number 3: how much effort was made to include what matters most to you in choosing what to do next?
Sorry, not again.
How much effort was made to include what matters most to you in choosing what to do next?
Well, I think you listened carefully to our concerns, and during the consult you gave us more information, and also after we left your office we got more medical guidelines, and we did not have to make a decision right away. We could just take our time, think about it, and so we did, and we discussed the pros and cons at home, and then we carefully considered everything and could make a final decision ourselves, and that was really nice.
Okay. Well, she's a bit of a special patient. Why is she special? Because she went first to another ENT clinic, which is a good ENT surgeon, I'm sure. So she can compare the two processes. So was there a difference between the two processes in the other clinic and our clinic?
Yes, I think your clinic provided us more information, and the moment where we received the information is very different, because like I said, we made the phone call to your assistant, and we already received information through the Inform in our email, so we could prepare questions before we even saw you. And the other clinic is also, doctor is very friendly and good, but we went to see her with our son, and she looked at him and considered and was thinking the pros and cons, and then she decided that doing the operation was the best for our son. And then when we left her office, then she gave us the printed brochures of how the operation will be done. And so, only then we got information, whereas your clinic, you get information in advance, during the consult, when you come home, and so lots of information, but it's nice to, in your own environment, you can just take the time, when the kids are in bed, you can just reevaluate everything, so that's the biggest difference.
So which one would you prefer?
I prefer the
your
clinic, of course. Yeah, but especially with the medical situation, I'm not a doctor, so you want to have all the information ready, and if your child is sick this very often and in long periods, it's out of your hands, you're not in control, and you want to be in control. So with all the information that we received, you have the feeling that I, as a parent, can make a decision, you can help your child, and it's not only the doctor who tells you what to do. So that's, I prefer that one.
Okay, great. Is there anything else you would like to share with the people here?
Well, I think that having all the information could really prevent unnecessary operations, and you have the feeling that it's really you're a team, so you're working together, and it's not the doctor telling you what to do, or I'm going too quickly.
Sorry, I was still
okay.
Sorry.
I think this new method, shared decision making, it's working really well. Especially, I think if you're our own patient, but also at the role as a parent, that you can really make a good decision.
Yeah, and you did.
And I did, because he's doing all better.
Okay, thank you for your cooperation. Yes. So this shared decision making, why bother? I mean, we operated the kid, didn't we? So what's the difference? Well, there's a lot of difference. Because the patient satisfaction is very high, but people really tend to choose more conservatively. And due to shared decision making and giving all the information, we have 25% less grommets than the average Dutch clinic or ENT. I don't have to remind you how much it will be in cost. So it really is a difference. We go, well, this was one ENT clinic. But what if we do it a lot larger and if we put everything together? Well, we started this last month with Project CHIP. It's a central connected health information platform. And it really is a combination of the things we talked about in part 2. We have the large database with everything in it, all the decision is, all the reliable information for all the information, and we have one single tool to bring it to the patients, but not only in one hospital, but transmural. So also by the GP, by the specialist, by the physiotherapist, and the combination will be tried for the next year. And it's not a small trial, because there are a lot of people who are work with it. All the information from the doctor's department, of course the patient organization, the non-profit organizations, of course the ministry, but also the eHealth companies and the health insurance, they also participate. We have a communication partners and we have the implementation partners, but the most important is, besides the patient of course, we have the caretaker, the health professionals, because this is going to happen. Almere is the 8th largest city in Holland. It has a population of 200,000 citizens. This month, and in the next 3 months, 50% of all general physicians were going to use the Inforum and the database to bring information to the patient. All pharmacists, because the Association of Pharmacists, we have a direct database connection. They were going to send their information. In the hospital, 30% will do that. The physiotherapist will do that as well. And over half a year, we're going to do the rest. And then we're going to scale up to the other regions, but also to the dentist and to the municipality. So we can do the youth care. We can give everything to the patient. And what do they give? A combination of the database, but also their own information, which they have made themselves. All their flyers, their websites, the telephone numbers. They can put that together. And the beauty about it is that everything they're going to put in the Inforum will immediately be available to the whole community. And this database is accessible for all Project CHIP members. The general physician can see what the specialist does and the other way around. So what's in it for the patient? The patient gets more grip and understanding due to tailored information all through their healthcare. And they have everything in their own mailbox. So they can check an Inforum and they can see, well, on January I was with the GP, on February I had amoxicillin from a pharmacy, and in March I had an operation of this and that and that. 10 years later you can still see it. And the most important thing, the record is in his own mailbox. The patient chooses where to bring the information, and therefore the patient is the core and the sole owner of the information. Only the patient can decide what to store, what to share, what to delete, and it's totally free for the patient. And because it is transmural and everybody uses the same database, you can do coordinated information. So your clinical pathway will go from the youth care to the GP to the specialist. So you can coordinate everything. And it's also the gateway to the more advanced tools, because when you have an Inforum from the Flevo Hospital, on the other side is the link to the portal. You click it and you are at the portal. Then you can get your personal information. Or if you are in the GP, you click and you go to the GP's portal. So it's also the gateway to apps or the eHealth shared decision-making tools. And of course, to the personal health record. That's where you can bring it also. You can also choose to put information in the personal health record. So I hope that next year I'm going to tell you that every citizen in Almere has all his information about his health and disease together in his pocket to share and to store as long as he wants to.
Om echt goed te kunnen beslissen is de patiënt gebaat bij goede en duidelijke medische informatie. E-com video en behandeling begrepen introduceren daarvoor zorgvideohulp. Een interactieve patiënteninformatie-videooplossing. Bezoekers vinden makkelijk hun weg door middel van de herkenbare en intuïtieve menustructuur van de video's. De kijker navigeert makkelijk naar wat hij wil bekijken. Informatie op maat. De interactieve video biedt de mogelijkheid om verschillende vormen van visuele content te laten zien die aansluiten bij de boodschap. Video. 3D-animatie voor het uitleggen van complexe medische behandelingen of instructies. Bestaande, al ontwikkelde videocontent van zorginstellingen kan ook makkelijk worden geïntegreerd. Met de kijker kan interactie worden gezocht door het stellen van vragen tijdens de video. Zo wordt getoetst of de patiënt de informatie heeft begrepen. De content kan in verschillende talen worden aangeboden, zodat ook laaggeletterden en mensen die slecht Nederlands spreken goed worden geïnformeerd. De patiënt kan in de video's ook worden aangezet tot een call to action, bijvoorbeeld het invullen van een formulier of een afspraak inplannen. En alles kan tot op de seconde worden doorgemeten. Dit geeft een duidelijk inzicht in het gebruik van de informatie. De interactieve patiënteninformatie-video-oplossing kan heel makkelijk worden ingebed in bestaande infrastructuur. Er is dus geen nieuw platform voor nodig. De website is fully responsive. De layout past zich dus aan bij elk apparaat: desktop, laptop, tablet en mobiel. Zorgvideohulp. Patiënteninformatie op maat. Altijd beschikbaar voor iedereen.
Okay, so this is. I hope you've seen all the videos. Or can you invite you to come to the stage again? I hope you have seen in all the videos that there are different kinds of things that we have to work together to improve the transferring from knowledge from the doctor to the patients. And we have to do that together, and everybody here has his own responsibility in it. First, to wrap up. We have to take home messages, of course.
Yes, I hope for you it's clear that shared decision making requires a change in attitude of the patient as well as the physician. You have to be attentive to what's going on in the patient, and you also have, but that's not mentioned that much now this afternoon, but you also have to be attentive to the emotions behind the disease and behind all the things that matter to the patient. So if you're not taking care of the emotions first and present so much information, it's hard to understand for the patient. So please also keep that in mind, that emotions count as well. Like Glyn Elwood said, it's ethical. It's ethical to incorporate patients in healthcare and treatments because it's all about the patients. And of course it improves the quality of health. Quality of health, healthcare, and the quality of life. And that's important for all of us, I guess.
Yes, and our second take-home message. Well, of course, shared decision-making, it needs reliable content. And it needs to be understandable for everyone, also for people with different skill levels, different language skills, non-native speakers, etc. It needs support from all healthcare organizations and also from the government. And it really needs to reach the patient. And this is where we see that, well, a lot of beautiful tools get built, but we now have to take the step to also get them to the patient.
Because, because in fact, shared decision making is shared healthcare. I mean, every one of you, somebody are from the ministry, some are from eHealth companies, some are from health institutions, and there are doctors and there are patients, but we all have to share our attitude to get it done. We have to put effort in it. We have to share our content and our resource and the tools. So in fact, shared decision making is shared healthcare, but also important is it's a shared responsibility of all of us. We all have to do that together. This is our mission. We didn't say who's going to tell you about the mission. Shall I do it? Okay. Yeah. Well, we have, of course, the shared decision making is a kind of a new technology and a new methods, and they always have great opportunities, but there are also risks. Everybody gets too much information, or there's fragmentation of all kinds, and we together have to make sure that we make it designed in such a way that shared decision making is truly supported, and that is, I think, is our mission. And I hope you will share that mission with us and think for yourself, what can we do to improve the patient empowerment for making shared decision and own choices possible. Thank you for your attention. Okay, we talked about a bit, we're going to go to the question part, but before I do that, is if you want to repeat and share this whole session, you can go to, with your iPhone or with your smartphone, you can make a picture of it, or you can go to the website, you push in the code, and you get everything in your mailbox, just like the patient has with his other information. And don't worry about your email address, it's not stored anywhere, so we won't know your email address. Are there any questions? Sorry.
I'm Susan, I'm a GP here in the Netherlands, and I love the concept of shared decision making, but I find it very difficult to do that in 10 minutes. So I was wondering how you have dealt with that in the ENT ward in the hospital. Okay.
We did not do it in 10 minutes. That's why we showed you that our process has totally changed. So we have one visit, then the second visit, in fact, is at home, because then they have all this information and to think about, and then third or the second visit at the doctor's office, then you're going to decide. So it takes more time, that's true, and that's why the health insurers have given us a higher tariff to support that, because in the long run, it's a lot cheaper for healthcare in Holland.
Do they also plan to do that on a larger scale?
I cannot look into the minds of the health insurers, but the three big health insurers have all done that. We get a lot, because we had our process for the conservative treatment is a lot more intensive. So we also get double the tariff. But still we are about, I think about 20% lower in cost than the rest of Holland.
Yeah, that's great. And I have another question about people with low literacy skills, because I think it's very important to involve those people in to get them the right information as well. So what are your ideas about this subject?
Yeah, at Thuisers.nl we use plain language, which is understandable for 80 to 85% of the population. But to support people with low literacy, we have a lot of brief films, movies, with explanation from a doctor in more plain language. So that can help people, and also there's a function which is called Read Speaker, which can read all the information. So that is easier for people with low literacy. We're not special directed, there's not a special target group, but we try to make our language so simple that it's understandable by most of Dutch citizens.
Well, I love Thuisarts, but because we put all those videos in it from the written text, which is difficult for people who cannot read. So I'm trying to convince also the ENT association to do the same for our information. And we are also working on the Inforum for a solution for bringing it to the illiterate patients. But that will be 2017. Any more questions?
Thank you. And thank you very much for a very inspiring session, and you definitely got me convinced if I wasn't convinced already. I do have one worry, however, because there's a lot of different treatments and a lot of different decisions to be made. And therefore there's a lot of tools to be made, there's a lot of option grids to be made. And it happens that also that medicine is changing, you come to new conclusions. So I'm a little bit worried about how on earth is it possible to create enough or a sufficient amount of tools and keeping them updated.
I can tell a bit about it because at the Dutch College of GPs we have a procedure and a good collaboration between the Department of Guideline Development and the Department of Patient Education. Every new guideline or every updated guideline automatically will be followed by patient information. There's now a new development at the Department of Guideline Development who collaborate with the patient organizations, and they are planning to put more option grids into the guideline process. So they make option grids in the guideline which are automatically put on the patient website. So that's a process just started, and we hope that that will help to implement shared decision making more.
And what you also have to consider, you have to look how it is now at this moment, because we already worked with Informing for a few years, and now we notice some people do not have email, nothing. And then have to say, well, then I'll give you the information like I used to, and that is nothing. And that's a fact of life. Most people do not get anything. You don't get any information. You just were told this and this and that, and there is no evidence whatsoever. And they not always have the most recent information. So it's at this moment it's worse. It's never going to be perfect, but it's a step forward. Questions? No? Okay, thank you for your attention, and I hope you have a nice evening. Hey,